Hi everyone, my name is Arden Taylor, he, him. I am a PhD student at the University of Edinburgh, and my goal for today is to give you all a crash course on gender representation in no masks. So hopefully the next time you're at a museum, you can impress your friends by pointing to a no mask and saying, ah yes, that is definitely a male mask. I can tell because of the way that it is. Or something more articulate, we'll see. So, for those who don't know, no is a traditional Japanese performing art, supposedly the longest continuously performed theatrical tradition in the world. It's important to note that most no masks are not depicting specific people, they're intended to be versatile archetypes. They are also designed to have a mutability of expression so that the actor can take you through their entire emotional journey. This mutability also tends to neutralize gender-specific features. No has religious roots, and so some scholars speculate that it still serves a similar psychological function of allowing a protagonist to tell their story in full, to essentially self-exorcise, and then to achieve catharsis. So when the audience sympathizes with them, they are able to experience this catharsis by proxy. It's for that reason that a sympathetic protagonist is of paramount importance. So this is a spectrum of human male no masks and one female mask. Can you spot the woman in the group? If you said the one on the far right, then you are correct and we're off to a great start. The komote, literally small face, is supposedly the most beautiful no mask of all. And you can see immediately how she compares to some of the others. Now, these masks are arranged by eyebrows. When you arrange them this way, you might notice some other features that are fairly consistent from one end of the scale to the other. Eyebrows were very important for people in the medieval period, which in this case is the 14th and 15th centuries, when a lot of innovation was still going on in no masks. Eyebrows indicated not just class, although that's a big one, but also age, profession, gender, sometimes even sexuality. So you can see that the last three masks, the Chujo, the Juroku, and the Komote, all clearly have tsukurimayu, artificial brows. The Chujo is modeled after Ariwana no Narihira, the famous Heian period Lothario. So he should be considered the most beautiful adult aristocratic male mask. The Juroku, who is the mask of Taira no Atsumori, by the way, if you're familiar with the tale of the Heike, shows characteristics of both the Chujo and the Komote, but you can see he's much more feminine than he is masculine. His brows are in this characteristic Hachinoji shape, which is unique to the Chigo, or temple acolytes, whom many scholars now argue should be considered a gender of their own. But importantly, I want to point out two things. First of all, that all but one of these masks show blackened teeth, which in reality, only two of them would have, the Chujo and the Juroku. Similarly, these two likely would have worn artificial brows in life, but no one else would. The Kantan Otoko and Wako Otoko also show artificial brows, just more of a subdued variety, indicating that they are not aristocrats. They still want to be pretty. According to Suzuki Masako, artificial brows and blackened teeth, decidedly androgynous gender features of the Heian period, had already started to be abandoned by men in the Kamakura period, which is to say 1190 to 1333. No masks do this, it is believed, in order to legitimize their art form by aligning themselves with Heian court culture, which still held cultural capital throughout the medieval period. Secondly, I want to point out that by arranging these masks by eyebrows, they form a scale from ugly, masculine, to beautiful, feminine. Crucially, though, all these masks are human, and they are all sympathetic protagonists, regardless of beauty or gender presentation. The same is not true of female masks. The first thing that I want to point out is the lack of variation in the human female masks compared to men. I've left out masks like the Uba and Hikaki Onna, which are old women masks, partly because they're used a lot less frequently than the old men masks, and partly because I didn't use any old men masks in the previous slide. Okay, Yorimasa is old, but he's not an old men mask. That's a different thing. So first you can see that there's very little variation in the eyebrows compared to the men. They're thinner or thicker, but they're always artificial, and they're of a pretty similar height. Similarly, they all have blackened teeth. They all have a relatively small eye-to-mouth distance, and their eyes are more or less the same shape. There are only minor differences in the neatness of their hair or the fullness of their cheeks. However, once you dip into the non-human masks, the Shinmen, there's much more variation. I especially want to point out the Hanya, who is demonic, but still does have a center parting of her hair, which is decidedly feminine. And she also has artificial brows. But everything else about her is monstrous. You might think that the horns are monstrous as well, but actually within no masks, horns are a fairly reliable indicator of femininity, or feminine rage, at least. Even so, there is a definite divesting of femininity the closer one gets to the demonic. So this is a progression of masks from the more or less human to the totally non-human and demonic. The first mask is the Dagon. She is actually a supernatural figure herself. You might be able to see that she has gold plating on her eyes and teeth. I chose to put her here not because she is generally considered a part of this progression, but because she is used to play Lady Rokujo in the first half of the play Aoi no Ue, concerning a jealous woman who possesses and torments her pregnant rival. And then in the second half of the play, she comes out in the Hanya mask. But the four masks in the middle, the Namanari, the Hanya, the Shinja, and the Hebi, are all part of an established progression of female jealousy and rage, which, if it isn't addressed, eventually turns them into full demons. I mainly want to point out what happens by the time you get to the Hebi, the full snake. Although it still has horns, it no longer has a center parting of the hair. In fact, I don't think it has any hair at all. And if we take these jagged gold lines on the brow to be eyebrows, it also seems to have facial hair. So we have horns and facial hair on the same mask, similarly to the Yakan. So demons essentially don't have a gender in no masks. Okay, so now you've had your primer on gender in no masks. So at this point, I just want to have a little informal quiz. I won't be able to see the results of this, but hopefully you'll have some fun. So just by a show of hands, how many people think these are all female masks? And how many people think they're all male masks? And how many people think it's a mix? Okay, that was a bit of a trick question because, in fact, they are not only all the same gender, they are all the same character. This is why I love the Yamamba. She may be a bit monstrous, but she really marches to a beat of her own drum in terms of gender expression. We don't have time for this. This is just an example of androgynous male masks. Some other features that I wanted to point out, two of them, the Jurok and the Semimaru, have this kamuri, which is a decidedly male feature. It's the indication of a court cap. But you can see the Doji and Kashiki, although they both have natural brows, they don't have a kamuri, they also don't have a center parting. So to me, they are deliberately androgynous, deliberately beautiful. And then here, I just want to point out some of the progression from early male no masks, which seem to have been more reflective of men of the time versus what they eventually became, this sort of affectation of aristocratic androgyny. And then lastly, in deference to the topic of this panel, I want to introduce the most famous mother character in No, known only as Umewakamaru no Haha, or the mother of Umewakamaru. There isn't a mother figure in No masks as such, but the fukai is the mask that is used in the play Sumidagawa, in which Umewakamaru no Haha appears. It's a story about human trafficking, actually. Her son, Umewakamaru, is kidnapped by human traders, and unbeknownst to her, dies soon after. But she searches for him for over a year, and then when she finally does find him, he is a ghost. So the play ends with this heartbreaking exchange between mother and child. In my opinion, she is one of the most iconic and effective characters in the entire canon, partly because her story is so moving, and I think partly because of the nature of this mask. One of the special features of it is the eye holes. I don't know if you can tell, but they are carved in such a way that they are actually pointing slightly downward. It gives the impression that she looks straight through you, that her gaze is somehow on another plane of existence. Crucially, though, even though Sumidagawa is considered one of the so-called madwoman plays, the fukai is still feminine and relatively beautiful. According to Noma Seiroku, that is really the point of female masks in No, to find each woman's unique beauty. But we know that beauty didn't just mean femininity, at least in the classical period, because of the existence of shirabyoshi dancers who dressed as men. So androgyny didn't have to mean ugliness for women, but in the medieval period, it did, at least in No masks. When a female mask maker named Nakamura Mitsue was asked to speculate on why there's so much variation in female demon masks, but not in human masks, she responded quite simply that mask makers are men. So this is how they see women. And to understand this, you need to be aware of the influx of Neo-Confucian ideology in the medieval period, but also of the rise of the AAS system, a new way of structuring families which placed a single patriarch at the center of a smaller family unit, for which purpose women's sexuality, particularly in the middle and upper classes, needed to be strictly controlled. Women lost the right to own land during this period, and also lost a lot of mobility as former itinerant professions like shirabyoshi dancers or shamans started to be associated with sex work, and sex work started to be demonized by popular culture exactly like this. Because Lady Rokujo is demonized because she breaks her gender role. She is a sexual aggressor. And so the reason that androgyny was not only permitted, but actually prized in men, while it was demonized in women, comes down to two factors: the lack of women socially able to contribute to the arts, and the ideology of warrior patriarchy, which demanded that women's behavior be policed. Even so, I hope you can appreciate all the facets of female demons with me and restore them to the righteous baddies that they should be. Thank you.